All right, today we're going to do something a little different. We're not diving into a huge data set or some complex scientific paper. Nope. Instead, we're going to be like textual archaeologists. We're going to unpack the history, the language, and all the drama hidden inside just one single ancient sentence.
So, here it is. And yeah, at first glance, that might look a little intimidating, right? This is actually a verse from the Old Testament, Book of Numbers, chapter 33, verse 37 to be exact. It's from a classic Serbian translation that holds on to some really beautiful old language. But what on earth is it actually saying? Well, to figure that out, we've got to break it down, piece by piece, just like an archaeologist examining an artifact.
Okay, so to get the big picture, we have to look at the little pieces first. We're going to break this thing down word by word and see what secrets are hiding in there.
Let's kick things off with the main action of the verse, Stadoše, ulogor. This part tells us what the people actually did, and the real key here is that very first word, Stadoše.
Okay, so this is actually a little piece of grammatical history right here. Stadoše is something called an aorist. It's this really old past tense that you just don't see much in common use anymore. And it doesn't just mean they stopped. It has this feel of a single, completed action in the past, like, bam, they arrived, they set up camp. It paints a much clearer, more decisive picture.
So they've made camp. But where? The verse tells us right here, Kod Gore Ora, which basically means near Mount Hor. And the word that really gives this phrase that old-timey feel is Gora.
You know, this is a perfect example of how language changes over time. Today, the common word for mountain is planina, but the text uses gora, which is this older, more poetic term. It's kind of like in English if you said valet instead of valley. It adds this weight, this sense of history to it, you know?
But it gets even more specific. The verse adds this little phrase, nameji. So they're near the mountain, sure, but where exactly near the mountain? Well, meja means a border, a boundary line. So think about that. This isn't just some random spot in the wilderness. They are right on the edge of a territory. That one simple word suddenly adds all this tension and precision to their location. They stopped right on a line.
Okay, so they're on a border. But whose border? The text doesn't make us guess. Here's the final piece of that location puzzle. Zemlja Edomske. And this is where things get really interesting, because now we're diving into some deep history. Zemlja Edomske means of the land of Edom. And the Edomites? Well, in the biblical story, they're the descendants of Esau, who was Jacob's brother. So suddenly, you've got family history, ancient politics, all of that is packed into just these two little words.
All right, so we've looked at the old grammar, the old words, the geography. We've got all our puzzle pieces. Now let's put them all together and see what this thing actually looks like in plain language.
And there it is. On the left, you see the original, kind of tough-to-read verse, and on the right, the modern meaning. And having departed from Kadesh, they encamped at Mount Hor on the border of the land of Edom. Wow. All of a sudden, it's totally clear, right? The journey, what they did, where they were, it all just clicks into place. But wait, translating the verse, that's really only half the story. The bigger question is, why? Why was this specific stop, out of all the places they went, so important that it got recorded in such detail? Because this sentence isn't just a travel update. No, it's a huge moment in a much, much bigger story.
You have to remember, this one sentence is like a single snapshot from an epic movie. It's part of this long list that summarizes the Israelites' entire 40-year journey through the desert after they left Egypt on their way to the Promised Land. So yeah, every single stop had a story.
And Mount Hor, man, this place was a huge deal for a couple of really important reasons. First off, this is where Aaron died. You know, Moses' brother, the very first high priest. So it's this moment of incredible sadness and change for them. But on top of that, remember they're on the border of Edom? That's because the king of Edom basically told them, no way, you are not passing through my land. So they were forced to take this long, difficult detour. You put all that together, and this one spot is just soaked in grief, political drama, and just the sheer will to keep going.
So, after digging into all of this, what's the point? Why does any of this matter? Why spend all this time on just one old sentence?
Because what we just did shows that a single line of text, it can be like a doorway. You open it, and suddenly you're stepping into ancient grammar, the way language evolves, the geography of a world that doesn't exist anymore, and most importantly, the real human drama of people on this incredible journey. All of that history,
All that story was just packed into a handful of old words. And really, that leaves us with one final thought. We just took apart one sentence, and we found an entire world inside it. Kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? So next time you see a piece of old text, or maybe just a word you don't recognize, take a second and ask yourself, how many stories are hidden in just a single sentence?